All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me here today for our webinar on wireless lighting controls. Really appreciate you all being here with us today and taking the time to learn about this technology. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Rick Walsh. I'm the product manager here at Lutron for our commercial wireless solutions. I've been at Lutron here for 9 years. I've been on our product management team for about 6, and my background is mechanical engineering and an MBA, so a good mix of technical and business. I have worked in both our engineering departments as well as product management as well. So appreciate you guys spending time with me here today. To give you a bit of an overview of what we want to cover during this training, we really want to focus on the benefits of wireless lighting controls and how they help on commercial applications, offices, schools, and et cetera. And we really want to help be practical in our examples, so we'll go through it. And I also want to make sure that, throughout, we're really trying to figure out how we can demonstrate that Vive, our commercial wireless solution, applies to real-life situations and applications. So we'll go through some of the support resources as well at the end, but throughout we're going to try to be very practical in terms of the examples and how it can actually help to address the real-life challenges we're facing on job sites and other things to make lives better throughout the commercial job process. In terms of logistics, feel free to type questions throughout in the questions box. I'll try to address them as we go. But if I don't get to all of them directly during the presentation, I absolutely will be answering them at the end of the presentation, both verbally, and I'll be typing in direct answers for more of the specific questions that may not apply to the rest of the audience. From an agenda, we'll break it down. We'll start with the basics on why lighting controls, and then the challenges we're facing with contractors and job sites today, why wireless, tools, resources, and we'll close out with a summary and a call to action. So let's start with the basics. Why do we need lighting control in a commercial building? Well, one of the things that we really look at here at Lutron is that we break it down into the 3300 story. Now, this breaks down in different sectors of a building's overall capabilities. First is the energy part of a building. Obviously, if you have lighting controls in a building, you can help save energy. And that can be just by dimming the lights when you don't need them, adjusting them when natural light is present, integrating with HVAC to help turn back the heating or cooling when no one's present in the room, and utilizing those occupancy sensors, and also doing things like peak demand savings. And this is a lot of why energy codes are driving this into more buildings throughout the country and around the world. But beyond that, lighting controls also help with the building's operations and utilizing the floor space better than ever. So this is going to be a very widely adapting field given all the current changes that have been happening in our world. But the data that you can get from those same occupancy sensors can provide you more information about how your building's running, how to better utilize the space that you've got, either making sure that people are spaced out properly or you have the right flows or the things like that. You can use that data to make better decisions. You can also reduce the cost of maintenance and integration with your other systems by making it easier for your building teams to interact with all of your systems when lighting control can interact directly and integrate to other building systems. And then finally, we look at the cost of the people in the building. Now, again, these 330 and 300 are not meant to be exact for all regions. It's meant to be an order of magnitude relationship between each of them. So it'll vary region to region, but tends to be that the relationship is the same. When it comes to salaries, we talk about things like making sure people have the right environment to work properly, can adjust their space to meet the needs of whatever task they're doing, and have the ability to access things like daylighting and use that efficiently with the electric light. The other reason why lighting controls in commercial buildings is that most of the time states are requiring some version of that. Now, a lot of the states around the country have energy codes. A lot of the provinces in Canada also have energy codes, and they basically require different levels of lighting control. Now, different states have different requirements, but they're updating at a pretty frequent basis, and a lot of them have been adopting codes over the last several years. I already know that this year alone, we've already seen a couple updates at places like New York. I think Nebraska has one coming up, and a couple other states. Title 24 in California just updated last year. So a lot of states continually update their codes, and new states are adopting those codes all the time. And then finally, we talked about this in the 300, but really lighting control helps to create the right environment for the people that work, learn, heal in that space. So when we can create the right light, when we can give you the right environment for your task, when we can integrate with the HVAC to combine and really create that into one environment for the people, we create a better building and we have happier people, which is really the ultimate purpose of why we have these buildings in general. So that sounds great, but if we look at a lot of what comes down to the reality of creating commercial buildings, whether it's new construction or retrofit or renovation, any of those types of projects, there's a lot of challenges that face people like electrical contractors in the industry today. First is there's more demand for skilled labor. Now, going into this crisis, there was a lot of shortage there, and I think given budgets and other constraints, that dynamic may change, but the pressure on trying to have enough people to get the job done, I think will continue to be a factor. Also, we continue to see faster timelines, right? Years ago, we had a lot more time to complete a job. Every year, it seems to get tighter and tighter and tighter in terms of the calendar time from the beginning of the project to the end. But at the same time, there's more changes and uncertainty throughout that project, right? More of these are being design build or being done with partially complete documents. And a lot of people are requiring more, whether it's the codes that I mentioned before, saying I need lighting control where I didn't before, or customers just expecting more from their building in terms of the personalization, the data, the ability to integrate to other building systems, the ability to create that welcoming environment for the people that work, learn, and heal in those spaces. So those are the challenges that face this industry, but they also create a great opportunity for us to take advantage of these trends and really allow contractors and distributors and other people in the industry grow despite these challenges. And the way wireless lighting control helps to address these solutions is in three main buckets. And in general, these are meant to say that they allow you to work smarter, not harder, right? We all know how to work harder, and every contractor I've met works extremely hard. But when we can work smarter by saying, hey, with these kinds of products, we can install faster. We can overcome all the unexpected things on a job that are inevitable in terms of coming up along the way. And we can do more with less. Those are the types of things that can really help address this pain points that we talked about to begin with. So let's break those down one by one. First, let's talk about installation. I like to show this graphic here because it's so visual in terms of showing how real the installation savings can be. When you use our Pico wireless remote with a faceplate, you don't need to have a wall box. There's no connections for wires to be made. There's no conduit to run down the wall. There's no cable to fish through there for a retrofit or renovation application. You can put it wherever you want. So there's no wire pullings, no back box needed. You just put it there and it wirelessly communicates. To get an idea of how that looks in a room, typically with that wall switch there on the left, you'd have to have a wall box, mud ring, you'd have to run the wire up the wall with conduit or flex cable or whatever. You'd have to connect it to the lighting control module. Then from that, you'd have to run the wire all the way over to the sensor, either in the ceiling or on the corner, put a power pack up there. There's a lot of wires going on. But when you're talking about wireless communication, those are done without having to run those wires. And when you're talking about Lutron and Vive, we're talking about ultra reliable wireless communication. We'll get more into that as we go on. So really what it does is not only does it seem easier because you don't have to worry about that, but you also eliminate a whole bunch of steps in the process. You don't need all those tools. You don't need those parts, those pieces. You don't need to cut into the wall, especially if it's an existing building. But even in new construction, right? You can eliminate a lot of those wire runs, a lot of those connections, and lower your overall estimate. So one of the things I like to do is think about it in terms of how many wall switches are in your job. And I'm going to start out with a quick question to all you guys and launch a little poll here. So for each wall switch in your job, how long does it take to install a wall box, conduit, wire pulls, and other materials when installing a switch? And let's assume for a second that this is a standard application, nothing too crazy in terms of, conditions or anything like that. Standard time to install what those are. Good, I'm seeing a lot of activity on the voting. This is great. All right, good. A lot of activity here. This is great. Yep, give a few more seconds to vote, everybody. Yep, just pick the buckets that are closest. It doesn't have to be down to the minute accuracy. So, all right, going to give you another 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. All right, and the polls are closed. All right, so I'm going to share the results here. So yeah, I typically see a lot of this in terms of the distribution. So this is great. Now, if you think about this, every one of those wall switches, you can save that much time that you entered when you put in, whether, seems like the plurality picked an hour and 15 minutes is their range. So each time there's a wall switch, if you're using one of our wireless wall switches, like our Pico wireless remote, you're saving that time, because instead of having to do all that work, all you do is mount it directly to the wall. So it's very easy to do. And you can save all that time, all that material, right? Each and every wall switch. That can really add up really fast. So this is something that's a point that I like to share in terms of when we say install faster, we mean a lot faster. And that will really add up. So thanks for participating there. All right, so the other thing that we talk about when we talk about wireless controls is not only does it install faster, but you can overcome the unexpected, right? So when you talk about the unexpected, I like to talk about it in terms of the, oops, I forgot one issue. So what I mean by that is that we talked about how timelines are going faster. We're working with more uncertainty throughout the process. And throughout that, a lot of times things can be missed, whether it's not specified clearly or you're just going fast and you miss something. But very simple example, this classroom was supposed to have 2 wall switches and not just 1. Now, instead of having to do all of that work that we talked about before, where you have all the ladder and the other changes and everything else, it's very easy to take that wall control that we talked about that saved all that time up front on the installation and kept your estimate low, and just add it on the job. So instead of having to make a big deal out of it, hold up the project, go back in, cut a hole in the wall, vacuum up the stuff afterwards, fish stuff through the wire, you just slap one of these controls on the wall and you're back on track without all of the headache. Very easy to adjust when things change. Another example, and we've seen this a lot, there might be some confusion in terms of the specification. So let's say, for instance, in an office, you thought that it was going to be a time clock control, but instead the owner says, no, our corporate standard happens to have been aux sensors, and that was missed. Well, that would be a problem, right? Oops, I forgot one, or several in some of the cases I've been involved in. Now, if you were doing a wired sensor, you'd have to go cut a hole in the ceiling, you'd have to mount the power pack, you'd have to mount the low voltage wire between the two, connect it to the high voltage, and you have to do that over and over and over again. Not to mention, one of the things that we find often is the dust that comes down from cutting into the ceiling tile or mounting to the ceiling can be quite a pain when you're doing wired sensors. And you're going to need all that stuff again. You're going to need all the wire, you need the power pack, you're going to need the, all the other stuff. And maybe you need to connect it to the momentary switch down in the wall with a wire. So maybe you might need to get involved there. So that's a lot of stuff to overcome and change, and can really be a drag at the end of the project when you're trying to get off and finish that you have to go take care of. But if you're using a wireless sensor, same idea. You don't need you don't need a power pack. You don't need low voltage wire. You don't need to tap into a junction box. You simply attach it to the ceiling wirelessly, and it speaks to those other controllers in the building. So that's the power of that wireless sensor. And you can see here, I think this is a great visual that shows the difference, right? The one on the left shows the typical wired sensor, right? You can see the power pack, You can see the low voltage wire. You can see the conduits connected to. You can see how you have to cut a hole in the ceiling and mount this and make connections, versus that wireless sensor with nothing behind it. Right? There's no wires. There's no fuss. It mounts directly to it. All right, I'm actually going to ask one more question because I always find this one fun. So we talked about that, but how often do you guys tend to see changes on a project? You guys a few more seconds to answer here. All right, a lot of good participation on this one as well. Thanks a lot. Give it a few more seconds. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, polls are closing. All right, so let's share the results from that. Unsurprisingly, the top 2 answers are always or often. Not surprising, I hear that all the time, and that's why these examples that I gave are so important, right? These are real life things that happen, and the nice thing about wireless is they help you deal with real life, rather than trying to say, oh, we're just not going to have issues on this project. We help you stay on track and keep going, despite the things that are just inevitably going to happen on that project. Now, for the 1% of you that answered never, I want to come work on your projects. You guys are doing something right, and I want to be there. So definitely want to be involved in those types of projects. All right. But yeah, I love this image. I think it really shows the difference between the wired and the wireless in a very visual way. So not only does it help you install faster in terms of the total time, and overcome those little bumps in the road that happen inevitably on a project, but it also helps you do more with less. Now, for years now, we've seen a growing trend that there's been a pinch in terms of the availability of skilled labor. Now, that's probably changing here in the short term in terms of how that affects things. But now, instead of there not being enough people, it might be that there's not enough budget. The bottom line is that you're always trying to get more done with the people that are on staff now, either because you can't get any more, because you don't have the budget for it, or whatever. So when you're using wireless solutions, kind of looking at the inverse of the install faster is that if you have a fixed number of people that you're working with, you can get more work done. So instead of having to only partially complete a building, you could completely finish a building in terms of putting in the lighting and lighting controls because of the wireless savings you get. And this allows you to get on to finish the project faster, and then those same people are freed up to go to the next project. So you can take on more projects without having to grow or be constrained by your inability to grow the labor force. So this is something that really helps you do more with less when you use wireless. So if we look at those 3 things, install faster, overcome the unexpected, and do more with less, you can really see how wireless lighting control can apply to these real life problems that we face in terms of contracting and getting commercial jobs done. Now, the flip side is, okay, well, I've seen wireless control before, and I'm not sure it's going to work. Well, at Lutron, we take a different approach to wireless technology. And the reason I'm showing our founder, Joel Spira, here is that we've been making high quality lighting controls for over 55 years. And one of the things that he instilled into our culture from the very beginning is a huge focus on quality. And I actually worked on the engineering project to develop our Pico wireless remote. And I remember his specific charge was to make sure that we treated the reliability of our wireless communications to the same standard that we treated wired communications. So at the end of the day, our wireless just works. We use a lot of different technology in terms of our frequency, the way our protocol works, how the wireless interacts with our systems to make sure that we have an ultra reliable communication and that it's just going to work every time. And that kind of culture is something that's built in. So not only are we innovating in terms of the wireless technology, but we're doing that in terms of quality and service to make sure that we deliver the promise of wireless in a way that can be repeated over and over again throughout jobs and throughout the world. And to prove that that's, something that's been demonstrated in the field is that we installed our first wireless control systems back in 1996. And I mentioned the reliability that we needed to hit, and we set the standard as reliable as a wired system. And we've done this for over 20 years. We've got multiple device patents, and we've deployed over 5 million systems around the world and growing every day. So not all wireless is this reliable. Not all wireless is equal. But our wireless can give you that comfort, that confidence, and that reliability that allows you to achieve those benefits that we talked about in the beginning, the install faster, the overcome the unexpected, and get more done with the peace of mind that it's just going to work. I see some questions coming in about the bidding and the three-way installation. So that wall switch that I talked about, the Pico wireless remote, absolutely you can do a three-way location. I'll show more about that as we get through it. So that's a great question. And yes, the wireless does pass through the walls. We have a range that we have on all of our devices, and it is through construction. So that is something you don't have to have it in the same room. It does not need line of sight. It can go through walls and through construction materials. So the other thing I hear from our contractors in our field a lot is, okay, great. Rick, I've heard that I can help my projects, with faster installation, get more done with the people I have. And I love overcoming the unexpected, but it's hard to overcome the unexpected stuff if it takes me weeks and weeks to get my product. Well, that is also backed up by industry data from Electrical Contractor Magazine as an example. Availability was one of the top 3 reasons for why contractors selected a brand for their products. And when it comes down to it, that availability is key to make sure that you can take advantage of the ease of installation, the competitive price, the compatibility, and those things like that. So if you don't have the availability, all those other things don't help you. And the nice thing about our wireless solutions and our Vive solutions is that these are extremely available wherever you guys are. We've got them on the shelf at thousands of distributors in both the US and Canada. And anything that they don't have, if you need quantities beyond that, we ship on a 2-day lead time. So we've definitely had projects where somebody needed something on a Monday. They picked up stuff that afternoon to get them started, kept them going, and they had the rest of it by that week, and then we're off the project by Friday. So this is the kind of thing that is only possible with the synergies of the benefits of wireless and the availability of the product at your local distributor and quickly from Lutron when needed. So that type of thing is really important, and that's something we focused a lot to make sure that we deliver that. Also, in terms of the current situation, we continue to be able to ship. We've been working on a lot of projects related to healthcare and other things that are critical projects, and we continue to support that and support our customers in terms of fast delivery with our products, even in this current situation. All right, so yeah, it sounds great, but the other thing is I haven't used wireless before. Maybe this is new. How easy is it to really understand and come up to speed? Well, it really is a simple system with our Vive Wireless technology in that it's got basic building blocks. You've got the load controller, and you can install that either in a wall box if you have it, or in the ceiling if you don't. You can even get the technology built into the fixture. But then you simply take a bunch of the other Lego blocks and connect them wirelessly. So you've got your sensors, wall controls, and if you want, we can even tie that all together into a simple system using a wireless hub that collects all those wireless devices. It's optional, you don't need it. You can just start with those things, but it does give you some additional features. And not only are the parts and pieces easy to understand, but it's really easy to set up on your own. You do not have to have factory startup when you're using our Vive wireless system. It is something that you can start up as a contractor, and you can either do it with simple button press programming, where if you've got a wall control and one of those modules in the ceiling, you can simply press on one and then press on the other, and they're connected to each other, like saving a station in your car radio. Or we have intuitive software to help you along the way with an app, where it literally walks you through it with how to. So you can see there with the first screen, where do you start? Well, we're literally have an arrow pointing, saying start here, to help walk you through the process, even if you haven't been through any training or anything else with Lutron. The one on the right might be my favorite, which says, press and hold the bottom button for 10 seconds. So I often challenge people that haven't been trained on Vive before, saying, so what do you think you do right now? They've got their Pico in their hands and they say, press and hold for 10 seconds. I'm like, you guys are right on it. So this is it. This is how easy we've built it to make it intuitive for you to pick up and anyone on your team to be able to pick up and go with the system. And not only that, but it's great if you can hit your install times and everything else, but really, Rick, I've got a budget to hit and it's tough for me to win jobs. So are the wireless components going to be a lot more expensive such that I use up all those savings? Well, no. First of all, the material cost is very competitive with any of the wired systems out there. Not only that, but there's huge labor savings that go along with it. So, and we've heard this a number of times, and here's a great example from a contractor, Sean Lazarian, who put this together for us. But he did a bid for a situation where he looked at a competitor's wired system and our Vive solution. And not only was his bid for Vive lower, but his profit as a result of using the wireless system was higher. Now, I know that's counterintuitive because typically, right, your trade-off the contractors have to go through is that if you bid lower, you're eating into your profit in order to win the job. But with wireless, if you're bidding wireless and your competitor is bidding wired, you not only can have a lower bid to win the job, but you can end up with more margin in the back end because you're saving on labor, time, like we talked about the install faster. You're not going to have as many problems because you can overcome the unexpected. You're going to be able to do more with the same people, which lowers your cost. And you're eliminating all those extra materials like wall boxes, power packs, low voltage wire, conduit runs that saves you on the material cost as well. And as I mentioned, you're not paying a premium for the wireless components versus a wired component. So it's really just a win-win all along for the contractor in terms of this process. The other great feature about the Vive wireless system is that you can start small and grow. One of the challenges that we've seen with lighting control systems in the past is that you kind of have to know what you want up front to know whether you've sized it properly for the features. So, but Vive's not that way. So we can actually take one room and do a wireless installation with just a couple of components, and then it's running on its own. And you want to add another room, you add another room, and it's running on its own. And then you can add another room, and you can build this literally like stacking those Lego blocks one on top of each other. Each room is simple, but you can build it up to an entire building or an entire campus. And you can go at your own pace. If you're doing it like a tenant fit out, do it one floor at a time. If you're doing it in terms of a retrofit, do it one room at a time. If you're doing a whole building, you can knock it out all at one shot. It's very easy to build as quickly or as slowly as your budget needs and customer allows. Very flexible in that sense. And then obviously there are some, things that every system needs to keep in mind, like security. And with our system, Vive builds that security in from the beginning. We've got what we call the secure lifecycle, where we look at not only security by design, where we have all the encryption methods like AES 128-bit encryption for network communications, WPA2 encryption for any Wi-Fi stuff on it, TLS, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we also have other people come in and make sure our systems are secure so that we don't miss anything, right? Certainly no one knows everything, so we actually hire people to come in and find the issues and we fix them. And we do this on a continuous basis. We monitor the latest things, we do it, and we provide ongoing support. So if you're working with a customer that wants to integrate with this with their building network, we have the support teams around the world in order to let them implement it in the right way and the support document to do so. And we've even built our systems to completely eliminate this type of discussion. So for instance, our wireless system does not need to be connected to the building network in order to operate, which takes away most of the security concerns that most building operators or IT networks have. So if the system isn't even physically connected to things where information might be stored on personnel or other things like that, then the risk threat is not there. So we can actually completely be isolated and run completely without that. So or we can completely connect with all of those features and benefits that I talked about and give you a secure implementation with things like remote connection and access and stuff like that. So all of that stuff is possible and is something we focus on heavily with our secure lifecycle. And not only does Vive have simple components, but it gives you powerful features, right? We can do things like the occupancy sensing and manual control that we talked about, but we give you simple control of things like time clock, energy information, demand response, load shedding. We give you maintenance alerts if anything's going wrong, settings and programs adjustments so that you can adjust the building or the end user can adjust the building. Even things like adjusting how quickly the lights fade on and off when you have certain events or when you press a button can be done in a very simple, easy to understand software on your phone, tablet, or PC. And we integrate with other building systems. We talked about that in the 330-300. So we can integrate natively from our Vive Wireless Hub via BACnet to things like building management systems, API software to things like smart building dashboards or other types of things. And we can do that for all these different types of systems. And we give you peace of mind with things like our cloud backup. Whenever you use our software and our hub to set up a system, we create a backup in the database and make sure that if anything goes wrong, all of that programming is saved so that you can reload it and keep going forward without issue. One of the things that I really like about Vive is that we here at Lutron have been focused on delivering those benefits, but I like to see the fact that they've been coming to fruition for people all over the place. I love the feedback we've gotten from people like Sean Myers. It's hands down the easiest commercial system I've ever commissioned. We talked about the reliability, and Pat Henry said, it just works. Andy said, it's very easy to program. I figured it out without any training at all. Ralph Rodriguez said, it's easy to install and program, and the wireless installation really saves time. And then I love the user-friendly ones, like it's very user-friendly program. I think any contractor can do it. Actually, I think anyone can do it. One of my colleagues actually had his kids program it at one point. As he had an 8-year-old kid, he had to set up the system for him. And Sean says that anybody that can play a game on their phone can program a Vive Hub. It's that easy. And one of the questions came in is, do you have to have the Vive Hub? No. To clarify that, no, you don't. You can just do the simple button press program with a PAL-Pack component and a sensor, or a PAL-Pack component and our Pico wireless remote. The hub's there if you want it for the additional features and for the programming and software, but it's not required. Good question. So some other examples that I love to share about Vive in terms of making it real and showing the actual value in a real road test. This was a job in the Edinburgh Consolidated Independent School District in Texas, where they had a bit of a thermal issue with the lights in their space. And what that means is basically they had put in some lower cost TLED solutions that weren't built to the highest quality standards and were spontaneously combusting. So you had 6 different elementary schools with all these TLEDs really not having a good day. So obviously they had fire marshals stationed there and everything like that. So they had to very quickly renovate this school to eliminate this issue. So in 8 weeks, they went from, oh no, we have a problem, to being done and the kids rocking, with the updated system. And that was only possible because of the wireless lighting control installation speed, the flexibility in the design, the ability to overcome all those little things that happened on the project, and the ability to make sure that despite them only having the amount of labor they could get in that amount of time, they were able to get the job done. And this was a great collaboration between the design team and the install teams throughout all these schools, but really not possible without the wireless technology. Another example, we talked a lot about the benefits of wireless, but it's also really great for retrofit applications. So if you're going into an existing building, you really can't beat it. And this is a great example of that. We worked with Pat Henry at Franklin and Marshall College in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and some of their buildings go back to 1792. So when you're talking about existing buildings, at least here in the US, that's about as old as you can get an existing building. And not having to fish wire through walls, being able to add those sensors and the controls where they needed them, and the ability for Pat to do this one room at a time. They actually were able to come in the morning and do a room, have it done and be running that day, do another room the next day, and another room the next day, was able to build and go as he went. So this is a really powerful story about how wireless really made this possible. And what was great is not only did they use that for their existing buildings, but when they built a new building, they used that same wireless technology that they saw all the benefits for in the existing building in their new buildings. So they were able to see it in both types. Another example that we like to talk about is the Suncrest Bank office in California. Now, we talked about in the beginning, energy codes are a big factor when picking lighting controls, and California and Title 24 certainly has a very progressive energy code. And so that was a big factor here, is how do we easily meet the energy code, but also make things simple. So this is a great example of using kind of a mixed retail office space with the wireless technology, easy code compliance. Vive really helps you meet any of those energy codes all around the country, very easy to do. And they were able to actually use our design tools to really lay out the system on their own because of those easy building blocks we talked about, get the gear quickly from distribution, and get it all installed and ready to go. So this is a great example of doing that, even in a place with the most strict energy codes. They also used a great aesthetic combination that you can see from this picture. They really wanted to project a certain image to their clients, and they were able to use our wall controls with a black Pico with a stainless steel faceplate around it. So really nice aesthetic, despite being a easy to use system and a very competitive price point. So good combination of those things as well. Now, some people tell me, hey, Rick, that's great. You can use wireless in some of those applications and stuff, but man, I've heard that you can't use it in government buildings or hospitals or places like that. And I always say, well, that's something that we've done a lot. Not only of that, but I love this case study because not only is it a hospital, but it's a government hospital. So a double combination there. So this is a really cool project. It's a retrofit for the Veterans Memorial Hospital in Seattle, Washington. And they actually had to do it while the hospital was running. Now, this was done pre-COVID, so they were running this in a lot of, kind of in a normal fashion. But what was really cool is because they had the capacity they did, the team had to work around all the patients in the building. So they were doing lighting controls and some other upgrades retrofit. So they would go into a patient room in between appointments, renovate that room, have it be running, and then the next patient would come right in. The team there also did the design all themselves as well, using our same design tools. And the only way they could have accomplished this was because of the wireless flexibility and speed of installation, but also that ability to scale one room at a time, build it up as they went. That was the only way. And it was really cool to see how that come together. And yeah, even with the low controllers, one of the things that you can do is you can mount it right above the ceiling if you have access to where the feed comes into the room. Or we also do have wall controls that can go to existing switches. If you can just pull the old switch out and put a new switch in. Or we even have the ability to put it into the fixture. So if you're just replacing the fixture, the controls can be built into that. So when we're talking about these retrofits of the historic buildings, there's a lot of options available. I think in this case, they used a combination of fixture-based controls and ceiling-mounted controls to account for that. So a good question as well. And then, some people tell me, hey, Rick, we heard all the benefits of wireless about the fast installation, overcoming the unexpected, doing more with what you have, but we're working on a really important building, and we're not sure we really can go full tilt with wireless. Well, we have our wireless technology built into the Empire State Building, which is a pretty iconic building. And Anthony Malkin there, you can see the quote he had from that case study, which said, the technical innovation of Lutron's wireless solutions has made them the Empire State Building choice for energy-saving lighting controls. So if we can put our wireless controls into the Empire State Building, we can work on your project. And we've worked on a number of the biggest projects around the world with our technology, with tens and tens of thousands of devices at a single site. So we can handle any size and any building prominence in terms of that wireless technology. So then, for those of you that want to do more on your own, we've also built a number of the tools. I mentioned this a little bit with our case studies, but we also have the tools to help you do more on your own beyond just the installation and setup and procurement. You can also do things like do quick estimates with our Quest D quick estimate and design tool, where you input information into it, basic information about your project. It'll come up with some solution options. It'll explain what you're getting in terms of, hey, this is mounted in the ceiling, this goes on the wall, with little videos built throughout, and give you a really quick budget upfront estimate of what it'll take from a bill of materials and a cost perspective to do a Vive solution. And then we've even got a tool called Designer Plus that allows you to do a more detailed design, whether you're working with your rep agent or on your own. We've got the ability for you to import floor plans. You can drag and drop the components and make connections, and you can output some middle level reports. So this is the same type of tool that our rep agents use. It's limited to Vive, and both of these tools are free and accessible to anyone. So you can visit our site at lutron.com/Vive and get access to both of those tools. As I mentioned, Quest D, you can see a couple shots there. It is more meant for the front end of a project when you're just doing that quick ballpark estimate, get an idea. It does give you some solution comparisons and what it does there. And then Designer is more for the detailed drag and drop with built-in design rules to make sure that you do the detailed polishing right and some middle level documentation. You can see a couple of quotes from some distributors that use the tool where they love the ability for it to use and generate those documents and really helps them win and sell projects quickly and easily. It also helps communicate to the field teams, showing where the components are in the room and a lot of other things to help the project go even smoother than we talked about before. And then finally with Lutron, we've got the benefits of our product. We talked about the real life applications of it. We talked about how it's reliable. We talked about how it's available. We showed you the real applications. But at the end of the day, you're never alone. We've got your back. We've got the sales, service, and manufacturers reps all around the US and Canada and support sites around the world. And we've got the people there to help you get trained, work on a project, help you on a project, and whatever you need to do to get the job done. We've also got field service around the country and around the world. If you need help on a project, if you don't want to do the startup on your own, we can do that for you. We've also got interactive support materials that you can use. If you want to learn more, if you want to figure things out, if you need help or need to find something, we've got an interactive support site at lutron.com/support that helps you find the on-demand content that you need. And at the end of the day, we've always got our 24/7 live tech support to help you when you need it. So throughout the project, we've got your back, despite the fact that we've built this solution that has those benefits and gives you the reliability, the performance, the proven applications. At the end of the day, you're never alone, and we've got your back. All right, so to recap here a little bit, why lighting control? Well, not only does it help with energy, rent, and operations optimization and people productivity, but it's also required by energy codes and helps create the right environment for the people to work and learn in that space. The challenges that we're facing today throughout the industry is the demand for skilled labor, the faster timelines, increased requirements, and uncertainty throughout the process. And we talked about all these things in terms of why Vive can help really and practically overcome the real life situations. You can install faster, overcome the unexpected, and do more with less. Right? If you remember three things, remember those three. Install faster, overcome the unexpected, do more with less. And then once you realize those benefits, you can remember that it works, it's available, so you can get it when you need it. It's easy to get up to speed, helps you walk through it, basic building blocks, easy to go as you know it, cost effective, but it gives you the advanced features. It's proven. We've got the testimonials and case studies to show it. We've got the tools if you want to get more advanced on the more of the design side, and we've always got the support where and when you need it. So the real call to action here is just let's get started. You know, I know a lot of you are retooling and working through this challenging time we're in right now, but we're here to help, and we want to know how we can help you get started. So at this point, what I'll do is say thank you for attending. I also do want to open up to questions. I'm going to be answering this, and I'm going to launch one more poll as well for the audience, just to get your feedback on this presentation. A lot of good questions coming in that I was trying to get to, but I didn't. So I will start answering those now, both verbally and as well. But for those of you that don't have a question, thank you very much. If you could answer the poll, that would be great. Very much appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.